Hello everyone, my name is David Vogt and I want to welcome you to the fifth of the 9-part series on implementing the new uniform guidance for IHBG and ICDBG. In this segment, we're going to be reviewing the procurement standards, and these standards are included in Subpart D, Post-Federal Award Requirements. Before we go on, let's take a moment and review that we have the 9-part series, and here's a list of each of the webcasts, and so you can choose to view the one that you're interested in. And also want to point out that in addition to the webcast, we have quite a large toolbox of materials, hundreds of pages, to assist you in understanding and implementing the uniform guidance. But in this session, we're going to be focused on procurement standards. The procurement standards are found in the uniform guidance between 200.317 and .326. I'd like to start off with this graphic because it really encompasses the basis of procurement requirements. We have 5 different competitive procurement processes: micro purchases, small purchases, sealed bids, competitive proposals, and non-competitive proposals. So one of your tasks in the procurement process is deciding which is the most appropriate procedure to use for your procurement. And then we have the general standards. Number 1, establishing and complying with your documented procedures. And wanted to note that the verbiage here is changed to procedures rather than just policies. Number 2, the purchase needs to be reasonable. The standard requirement to be eligible, it needs to be reasonable, necessary, and documented. There also needs to be full and open competition, and there cannot be a conflict of interest. And in terms of documentation, we want to document all the decisions we're making, including the cost and price analysis, the cost estimate, whichever method we're using, and the basis for selecting the contractor. I also noted contractor in blue here because the previous term that was used was vendor. We no longer use the term vendor. It's for procurement, we're always dealing with the contractor. And we'll be getting more into this definition of the contractor in the next segment. Okay, so we start out with the general standards. Again, it's required to have documented procurement procedures, and those procedures must conform to federal and local laws. Also included in the general standards are the requirement for written standards of conduct. Well, what are the written standards of conduct? No employee, officer, or agent may participate in the selection, award, or administration of a contract if there is a real or apparent conflict of interest. So we have to keep in mind here of the appearance of a conflict of interest. That would erode the credibility of your program and bring into question the use of federal funds. So we have to address the appearance of a conflict of interest, even though you may feel that there's not, in fact, a real conflict of interest. Well, what is a conflict of interest? Here we have the definition: when the employee, officer, or agent, or a member of his or her immediate family has a financial or other interest in or a tangible personal benefit from a firm considered for a contract. And of course, we have very clear guidance in NAHASTA under 1000.30A. There's a new component to conflict of interest that I want to point out here, and that is the requirement to have written standards of conduct with respect to organizational conflict of interest. And that's a interesting concept. So if you have a subsidiary, a parent company, then you have the potential or the appearance of a conflict of interest. And so you're required to establish written standards about how you're going to work with that organization that you have a special relationship with. So this is something that if you identify that you have a relationship with another organization like that, this is something you need to put on your to-do list to implement the uniform guidance. You're going to have to develop that policy. And we also have another new requirement here having to do with time and material contract. Now, a time and material contract is the least desirable of your options for contracting. But as a last resort, you may feel that this is the only way that you can proceed with a needed project. The issue with this is that there is no incentive for the contractor to be efficient and effective in their completion of the project, because they're paid on a fixed hourly rate, including profit, plus their actual cost of materials. So that one might be concerned about a contractor with such a contract of drawing out that work as long as possible because it gives him an ongoing cash flow. So you are now required to set a ceiling price for such a contract, and noting that the contractor exceeds that ceiling price at his own risk. And it's specifically noted in the uniform guidance that you must exercise a higher degree of oversight over that contractor and that contract to ensure that it's proceeding in an efficient and effective way. Again, something to include in bringing your procurement policy into standards with the uniform guidance. Yet another new requirement for procurement. This has to do with a relationship that could affect open competition. Contractors who were involved in drafting specification, statement of work, or in some other way with the RFP or IFB must be excluded from consideration for being awarded the contract. The thought here is that this gives them inside information. This gives them the opportunity to structure the RFP or IFB in a way that would give them a preference. So you have to, again, make the change to your policy to ensure that you don't have that conflict between the entities that are involved in drafting the procurement documents and also participating in the procurement. Okay, let's go on now and get started looking at the methods of procurement. And you're going to find the methods of procurement under 200.320, starting with micro purchases. And micro purchases allows you to proceed with a very simple process to procure materials, but there is a low limit for making procurements of that type. And I think that's in recognition that it takes time and money to go through a more elaborate procurement process. And for small purchases, that it's a cost-saving measure that we can use micro-purchase simplified measures. Let's go ahead and take a look at the definition of micro-purchase or the description of micro-purchase under 200.320. A, procurement by micro-purchases. Procurement by micro-purchase is the acquisition of supplies or services, the aggregate dollar amount of which does not exceed the micro-purchase threshold. And micro-purchases may be awarded without soliciting competitive quotations if the non-federal entity considers the price to be reasonable. So there is a requirement that you make the determination of the cost being reasonable. And also, the second sentence, to the extent practical, the non-federal entity must distribute micro-purchases equitably among qualified suppliers. So although we're not doing a competitive process here, we are making that business funded with federal funds available by rotating the purchases to qualified suppliers. But it's not telling us what the dollar amount here is for micro purchases. Let's flip over to subpart A definition for a micro purchase that can be found at 200.67. Micro purchase means a purchase of supplies or services using simplified acquisition procedures, the aggregate amount of which does not exceed the micro purchase threshold. And down at the bottom, the micro purchase threshold is set by the Federal Acquisition Regulation. It is $3,000 except as otherwise discussed in subpart 2.1 of the regulation. But this threshold is periodically adjusted for inflation. And that is what has happened since the UG was published. That threshold has been increased to $3,500. So for all programs that is under the uniform guidance, the threshold is $3,500. Now, it's important to point out that we do have a program-specific requirement, however, for IHBG. And that program-specific requirement establishes $5,000 as being the threshold for micro purchases when using those funds. I do want to point out that $2,000 is the threshold that triggers Davis-Bacon. So this in no way, this is a procurement issue. This in no way allows you to engage other program requirements such as Davis-Bacon, tribally designated wage rates, and so on. And let's go on and look at other methods of procurement now. And really, there's, for our programs here in ONAP, there's really no significant change here. The simplified acquisition threshold is for small purchase procedures is $150,000. That was not changed. It remains at $150,000. And all that's required here is that you get bids from required adequate number of qualified sources. How you define the required number of qualified sources is something that should be identified in your procurement policies and procedures. Then we have sealed bids. This is formal procurement, formal advertising is required. It requires a detailed scope of work. It requires at least 2 responsible and responsive bidders. And it lends itself to a firm, fixed price contract. You're selecting the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. Because you are specific, explicit about what's required by the contractor, the only point of making the selection is based on the price, the cost. So it's not based on low bid alone. It's the lowest bid from the responsible and responsive bidders. You identify in your procurement documents what is required for that bidder to be responsive and responsible. And then we come to competitive proposals. So when conditions are not appropriate for the project, that you can be explicit about what you are requiring. Then you need to go through this competitive proposal process where you are identifying evaluation factors and their relative importance. You still need an adequate number of sources to evaluate. And your written RFP would provide all the information about what is being requested and how their proposals will be evaluated. And then we come to non-competitive proposals. And there's a number of reasons why you would do a non-competitive proposal. Number one is that it would only be available from one source. It's an emergency, and you cannot delay the process for competitive solicitation. Or that you went through a competitive process and you found inadequate competition. Now, if you choose to go to your agency and ask their approval for a non-competitive proposal, you must do so in writing. So this is the new requirement in regard to non-competitive proposals. There's also very explicit requirements for small minority business, women-owned businesses, and labor surplus areas. And it's very clear the federal and non-federal entity must take all necessary steps to assure that these type of businesses are used when possible. And so this is what you must do to facilitate that. Placing these firms on a solicitation list. Soliciting, including them in your solicitation when they're a potential source. Adjusting the scope of work and scheduling when feasible. That's very significant. Thinking about breaking up procurement in order to make it possible for these small businesses to participate. Reconsidering your schedule to make it possible for these small firms to participate. Very interesting new requirement here in this regard, I think. And again, requires modification of your procurement policy and procedures. Partnering with Small Business Administration and a Minority Business Development Agency. And these requirements are passed on to your prime contractor. So very, very significant, very significant. How this would be implemented in your area, this is something that you would have to evaluate since each area is different, and the number of firms that would fall in this category would have to be identified and so on. Okay. Let's move on and talk about point 323, contract cost and price. Okay, when is a cost and price analysis required? It is required when the procurement is above the simplified acquisition threshold, which is $150,000. So below that, a cost or price analysis generally is not required. However, you still have to determine that the cost is reasonable. And so that requires coming up with a cost estimate before you get into the procurement. Also, when you have a situation where you have no competition, then that would also require going beyond the estimate and making some cost of analysis to help ensure that you are getting an appropriate price for that work, because you don't have the effect of competition at that point. So under point 324 then, there is simply stated requirement that the federal awarding agency or pass-through entity who would be working with the pass-through entity, presumably would be the recipient of the grant, and they have a subrecipient. And in either case, they are given the right here in the uniform guidance to request procurement documents so that they can review, make sure that the proper procedures are being followed as we just discussed. Oh, again, it is necessary to document all your procurement decisions, the basis for all your procurement decisions. So when those documents would be requested, there really shouldn't be a problem in providing those. Remember, when you're documenting your files, those documents also have to be retrievable. So you have to have a filing system that enables you to produce those documents upon request. All right, let's go on and talk about bonding requirements here. There really isn't a change here. Do want to point out that the uniform guidance establishes guidelines for bonding requirements. We do have some program-specific requirements here for IHBG, as shown, that provides an alternative to what's in the uniform guidance. The uniform guidance talks about bid guarantees of 5%, performance bond of 100%, payment bond of 100%. Here are some alternatives that you have. It's noted, however, that for ICDBG, the 10% is not an option. Again, we're talking about program-specific requirements. We have one requirement for IHBG, another requirement for ICDBG. That's a little bit different. Now, this is where it really gets fun. Contract provisions. Oh boy. And we're going to find these contract provisions in Appendix 2 of the Uniform Guidance. So there's a lot of contract provisions. We're only going to look at contract provisions that have changed. So here we have the Equal Opportunity Clause. The threshold used to be $10,000. Now it's required for all contracts that meet the definition of federally assisted construction contract. And then we have the Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act. The threshold used to be $2,000 and $2,500. Now it's been raised to $100,000. And we have also Clean Air Act. The threshold used to be $100,000. Now it's $150,000. And we have a new provision for the Byrd anti-lobbying amendment. This is required for contractors who apply or bid for more than $100,000. And it also gets carried over to their subcontractors. And so this is simply saying that no federal funds were used to affect the use of the federal funds. They must disclose any lobbying using other than federal funds, and that would, as I said, that includes their subcontractors. All right. Let's do a couple exercises and apply some of the material that we just went over here. So here's exercise 1, standards of conduct. The Elk Mountain Tribal Council selected Johnson Construction for the development of a 10-unit housing project. One of the council members, Fred Johnson, is the brother of the owner of Johnson Construction. However, Fred abstained from participating in the decision. Charlie Johnson, Fred's son, is the development coordinator for the tribe. So according to the uniform guidance, is there a conflict of interest?
Well, Fred had a conflict of interest, but since he abstained from participating in the decision, then that was resolved.
That's exactly right. He removed himself. He identified that he has a real conflict of interest here, and he removed himself from that conflict of interest. And of course, that would be important to document in the record. So, and also to go on and make that disclosure. Okay, do we have any other conflicts of interest here?
Charlie Johnson.
Charlie Johnson, he has a conflict of interest.
Yes. Fred's son.
For his son. Although he is not making the procurement decision. So he has no conflict of interest with the procurement process. What is his conflict of interest? Let's take a look at the regulations for this under 200.318C1. No employee, officer, or agent may participate in the selection, award, or administration of a contract supported with federal award if there is a real or apparent conflict of interest. So in this case, Charlie would be involved in the administration of the contract. That is, again, a conflict of interest. That has to be resolved. So here we have a situation where Charlie is the development coordinator. So this is going to require an organizational issue about how to reassign responsibility for the administration of this particular contract. So again, that has to be identified, resolved in a way that removes Charlie from any involvement or information about the administration of this contract. And that would be documented in the records so that information is disclosed. It's a matter of shining the light on it. Nothing is being hidden, it's all up front. Very good. Okay, let's get started with procurement exercise 2, competition. To help fund the housing development project, the Elk Mountain Tribe is considering applying for the Indian Community Development Block Grant Program. To do this, they need to hire a consultant to help them with ICDBG application. The tribal administrator suggests contacting Wilson Consultants to draft an RFP because they provided assistance in writing their ICDBG application a few years ago. Is this allowable? Is there a problem with that?
It could be allowable to contract with Wilson Consultants to draft the RFP if procurement requirements were met.
Yes. Now, I don't know how much they estimate this contract would be. I wouldn't think it'd be a whole lot. It probably, I don't know what source of funds they would be using for that. It probably would be a micro purchase. So, you know, they can just proceed with that procurement if they wish. Now, let's think further down the line here. Under what circumstances would it not be allowable?
If Wilson Consultants drafted the RFP, it would not be allowable to contract with Wilson Consultants to prepare the ICDBG regulation.
Yes, that's right. The rule is that an entity that is involved in developing the procurement documents is precluded from participating in the procurement itself. So that's fine for them to have Wilson Consultants prepare the procurement documents, but they must be excluded. They could not be considered in actually receiving the award under that procurement process. Very good. And that is laid out explicitly in 200.319A. Okay, we talked in some detail about micro purchases. Let's test our knowledge here by going through these micro purchase exercise here. So, a pickup truck costing $7,000 using IHBG funds. What type of procurement method would be used for this purchase?
It would be a small purchase.
Small purchase, yes. It's higher than the micro purchase limit. It's lower than the simplified acquisition threshold, so it would be a small purchase. A laptop computer for a development coordinator costing $5,000 using IHBG funds.
That would be a micro purchase.
That would be a micro purchase, yes. Now for IHBG, we have the program-specific requirement that the limit for micro purchase is $5,000. So since they're using IHBG funds, this would be within that threshold of $5,000. However, for the other programs, let's remember that the threshold is $3,500. Okay, a soils analysis costing $2,500 using ICDBG funds.
That would be a micro purchase.
That would be a micro purchase, yes, sir, because that's within the $3,500 limit for micro purchases under ICDBG and the uniform guidance, yes. And lumber costing $4,000 using a combination of ICDBG and IHBG funds.
That would be a small purchase.
That would be a small purchase. Now, if only IHBG funds were used, that could be a micro purchase. But since ICDBG funds are used, we have to go with the most restrictive requirement, which is $3,500. So yes, that would kick it up to the small purchase procedures. Okay, very good. Okay. So that brings us to exercise 4, contract cost and price. We have 2 little exercises here. The Elk Mountain Tribe received a low bid from Ace Sand and Gravel in the amount of $145,000 for gravel to be used in their construction project. They had estimated it would cost $160,000. Is a cost or price analysis required, and why or why not?
Well, since the amount of the contract is less than $145,000, a cost analysis is not required.
Yes, for procurement under $150,000, that is correct. Now, in this case, they estimated it would cost $160,000. The threshold for doing a cost or price analysis is $150,000. So once they estimated the cost was going to be $160,000, that would have required them to do a cost or price analysis. And that is identified in 200.323A. That estimates must be made before the bid. Before the bid. All right. That's a trick question there. Okay, let's go on and look at the second question. After entering into the contract and starting work, Ace submitted a change order in the amount of $20,000 due to a change in the scope of work. Is a cost or price analysis required, and why or why not? Thoughts about that?
Since the original contract was non-competitive, I would think that you would probably need one to justify it, and also probably need one because it's over $150,000.
Yes, this, essentially the change order really is a non-competitive proposal. You have no effect to competition. Therefore, a cost, and actually I would say a price analysis is required. When you do not have competition, you must evaluate profit separately. So that brings us into a price analysis. So that's something to keep in mind, is that the issue of competition. Competition has the effect of determining the market value. When you don't have competition, you have to take other measures to ensure that you're getting a reasonable price. And that information is found under 200.323B. I want to point out that a procurement policy is included with the supplemental materials. I showed you the list of supplemental materials we have available at the beginning of this segment. And I just wanted to take a minute to point out some of the components of the sample policy that I think would encourage you to take a look at that policy. It is a substantial policy. It's 33 pages. It encompasses the uniform guidance requirements. It includes, for example, the small minority owned business requirements we reviewed. It includes the contract clauses, Indian preference, Section 3, the methods of procurement, bid protests, conflict of interest, and it also includes a procurement analysis form. And I think the use of forms such as that goes a long way in documenting what you did and why you did it. And so I encourage you to take a look at this policy and build onto it with your own internal procedures, and to address how business is done in your particular community and the rules that you need to, the local rules that you need to follow. Well, that concludes our presentation on procurement. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you found this helpful in meeting uniform guidance requirements. Thank you.